Hey everybody, how's it going? So today I just wanted to go over two of my favorite politicians in New York City, Deblasio and Cuomo. If you couldn't tell by my tone of voice, I didn't vote for either of them. I voted for Larry Sharp, but he made sense, which means of course he's going to get less than 2% of the vote. But anyway, they've been arguing back and forth on taxing people and so on and so forth, and I just wanted to play what they both said and then just speak about my thoughts on it. So this is something that Cuomo said about people leaving the city.
I literally talk to people all day long who are now in the Hamptons house, who also lived here, or in their Hudson Valley house, or in their Connecticut weekend house. And I say, you gotta come back. When are you coming back? We'll go to dinner. I'll buy you a drink. Come over, I'll cook. They're not coming back right now. And you know what else they're thinking? If I stay there, they pay a lower income tax because they don't pay the New York City surcharge.
Now, de Blasio, our mayor, was very mad at what Cuomo, the governor, had to say about this, and here is what he wound up saying.
To the point about the folks out in the Hamptons, I have to be very clear about this. We do not make decisions based on the wealthy few. That I was troubled to hear this concept that because wealthy people have a set of concerns about the city, that we should accommodate them, that we should build our policies and approaches around them. That's not how it works around here anymore. This city is for New Yorkers. This city is for people who live here, work here, fight to make this place better, fight through this crisis. So there's a lot of New Yorkers who are wealthy, who are true believers in New York City, and will stand and fight with us. And there's some who may be fair weather friends, but they will be replaced by others. But we must build our policies around working people.
All right, so here are my thoughts here. So in a video that I did a while back, I got a lot of flack for discussing this, this quote, right-wing talking point that when you raise the taxes in an area, you incentivize people to leave. And one of the things that I brought up was I said, well, people have actually been leaving New York City in year after year after year after year. I'll post some links in the description down below. And a lot of the people that are leaving they're not the people that are broke. They're the people that are rich, or at the very least, kind of doing well for themselves. You know, in the 150,000 and up class, you have more and more people leaving. And now there is this idea that, well, you know, people aren't going to leave if you tax them more. And the thing is, both are true. New York City as a place has a lot that makes it worth the additional tax to a lot of people. You have a lot of restaurants of all different types in this small concentrated space. You have all these museums. You have economic opportunity. You have Broadway shows. You have all of this stuff in New York that you don't have in a lot of other areas. You have all these Fortune 500 companies that have headquarters or large presences here. This is one of the economic centers of the world. Even if you have a basic idea, if you're willing to work 12 to 16 hours a day, you can make money in New York City because it is the economic center of the world, and you do have so many companies headquartered here. So if you're willing to put in 12 or 16 hours of work, you can go from being broke to, let's say, having a company like me, and 10 years later, 14 employees. Whereas a friend of mine, someone like let's say Mark, who lives in one of the more rural areas of Florida, he's actually better at this job than I am, but the same opportunity is not there because the lack of population density and economic activity in the area. So there's a lot of reasons to live in New York City and tolerate the taxes to where people are not going to leave even if you keep raising their taxes. However, what I think is really important to bring up here is that there's no more carrot. So let's say that you came here because you love the fact that there are all these different restaurants, and like if you're a billionaire, whatever, you're never going to spend that money throughout your entire life, right? So who cares if your taxes are a little bit higher? You have all these restaurants to choose from. They're all closed. Well, you know, that sucks, but you can see a Broadway show whenever you want. Isn't that worth it to you? You're never going to spend all that money in your entire life. Do you really want to have to deal with commuting in from, you know, from Alabama to see a Broadway show? No, you don't. Come on, stay here even if the taxes are higher. There's no Broadway shows anymore. The museums are closed. What about the economic activity? I mean, there's a lot of companies here, a lot of people working here. Actually, no, they're not. A lot of them are forced to stay closed. So here's the problem. The stuff that makes it worth putting up with the pollution, how nasty everything looks, the Eugene-level infrastructure that you see everywhere, even in spaces where they want $20,000 to $30,000 a month, as I showed you in my real estate series, it's a bunch of old-ass, unmaintained 100 to 150-year-old buildings that look like shit, are falling apart, and are patchworked together because the cost of living is so high here that nobody has any money to actually fix things properly, and all the red tape involved in doing any sort of renovation work. What makes it worth it to deal with the people in New York City who are often assholes, it's been a reputation for a long time, the fact that, you know, if you lock a bike up here, you know, if what you locked it to isn't properly welded to the cement, it will be stolen. All the stuff that makes New York City suck. You got those couple of good things. And those couple of good things, the fact that there's a lot of economic activity and there are a lot of shows, a lot of art, a lot of culture and things to do here, that's been slowly leaving over a long period of time. You know, a lot of the music venues have been going away. A lot of the art venues have been going away. There's a blog called Evie Grieve, where it's pretty much just grieving about what the East Village used to be and all the stores and things that used to be open that are now being replaced with an empty storefront, a Chase, a Starbucks, a Trader Joe's, a Whole Foods, a Chase, a Starbucks. You know, all the stuff that makes New York City somewhat worthwhile is gone. So when people leave New York City, it's kind of like when Windows Vista came out and a lot of people went over to Mac. As long as Apple doesn't screw up, they're not going to go back to check out Windows 10 and figure out, or Windows 7 and figure out that they fixed all the fuck-ups with Vista. Something bad happened. Now they left. You broke the inertia. They left. Now, if the place that they go to, they realize is better, they're not just going to go back automatically. Like that person that switched to Mac after they had to deal with the hellhole of Windows Vista or Millennium Edition, they're not going to go back. You need to earn them back, and you need to be able to offer them more than what you had before, because maybe the only reason that they were actually staying with you to begin with was the inertia. And a lot of people may have just been staying in New York, but just based on inertia. You know, like me, they started a business here because there was economic opportunity, and they were born here, and they didn't have enough money to leave or try starting over somewhere else. All the things that make New York City worth living and go away. And then they go somewhere else. And the place that they go to has clean streets, clean lawns. They can actually have a bicycle, and they don't have to lock it, and it doesn't get stolen. You could see there's trees. There's less air pollution. People are nice to them. Property prices are lower. The infrastructure is nicer. The people are nicer. Why are they going to go back to New York City? Even if you don't raise their taxes, even if their taxes are kept exactly where they are now, why would they come back to the city? You have the overcrowding, the pollution, the everything, and the fact that there's nothing here. There's nothing open. Now, if you go to one of those small towns where there's nothing to do, if they have a lockdown that is less restrictive than what we have, a lot of small towns don't even have lockdowns, there's the argument to be made that there's actually more to do in a small rural area than there is to do in New York City. Because in New York City, all this stuff is closed. So why would anybody come back? Now, whether or not you like the fact that that's reality doesn't really change the fact that that is reality. People are not going to show back up to New York City unless there's an actual reason to. And I really understand what Deblasio is saying. We're not going to make decisions based on just what rich and wealthy people think. And okay, fine, great. That great. I understand the sentiment. I understand the emotion behind the sentiment. I understand not wanting to have a group of oligarchs dictate how you deal with policy and live your life. However, the basic fundamental reality is that rich people can move from this area to this area. And they're not going to move from New York City to this area, to Pennsylvania, Alabama, or Maine or whatever, just because you raise their taxes. There's quality of life, there's stuff that they may enjoy. But when everything that makes New York City even remotely tolerable is closed and shut down, then really all that's left is that underbelly of pollution, crime, stress, aggravation, high prices, high cost of living, and crumbling infrastructure. And why would people want to stick around for that? You got to think about that. You have to have your carrot if you're going to have your stick. If you're going to have your taxes, you need to have the stuff that actually makes the area worth it. To raise taxes in the city at the same time that you've taken away everything that makes the city even remotely tolerable is kind of like showing someone a $90,000 Tesla, making it a gas motor instead of electric, making it take 8 seconds to get to 60 miles an hour, and making it ugly, but expecting them to pay the same price. It fundamentally makes no sense to me. You can try a price increase with the same quality. You can try a slight quality decrease at the same price. but you can't decrease quality while simultaneously increasing price. That just doesn't work. And even before this happened, you had people leaving the city. Before coronavirus, before shutdowns, before any of this stuff, you had people leaving the city. Then you shut down the economy and everything else. Then you have it where people like me have to put wooden boards on their window and then hook up a horn that's 400 watts that JP sent me to a floodlight and have it in the front of the store and have remote desktop turned in, logged in with my power supply that goes to a relay so that when people start banging on the door because they're trying to break into the building, according to my upstairs neighbor, I can scare them away with a 400 watt air horn. On a place that I'm supposed to pay $12,500 a month to have, I need to do this bullshit to keep people from breaking in because the city is such a clusterfuck. I think the part that pissed me off more than anything else is this whole idea of the concept of the true loyal New Yorker, as if that even exists. When you watch movies and you see these figures or this idea of what New York City is or what New Yorkers are, those people are gone. They're not here. Come to New York City, walk around. All of that stuff is gone. They're in Florida. They're in another state. They retired somewhere else where it's cheaper and things are nice. They're not here anymore. And there was I remember this one article a while back where they were talking about how many renters in New York City hadn't paid rent since March, which is, it's pretty bad. It was something like there's 5 million renters in New York City. New York City has a population of approximately 8 million people. Most of the people that live here, a majority of the people that live here, don't own anything. They're renters. You can't afford to own anything here because if you want to have a house that's not a complete and utter shithole in the 5 boroughs, it will cost you over $1.2 million. And if you go outside the 5 boroughs, you're going to pay 2.2 to 2.8% property taxes, to where even a crappy little 70-year-old house like the one I showed you in Malvern is going to wind up costing $20,000 a year in property tax alone. You don't own anything here. You need to own things in order to feel invested in whatever it is you have. When you rent something, you treat it differently than when you own it. And the people that are here, they're not here because New York City is so great. They're not here because they're such loyal New Yorkers. And to think like this is ridiculous. They're here because there's a bunch of nice restaurants, entertainments, clubs, bars, Broadway shows. Or they're here because they need to be here because the economic opportunity is here. And if they move to someplace that's more rural, they're not going to be able to have 10 or 20 clients a week and make a living. They're not here because New York City is so great or amazing, Deblasio. Why don't you understand that? This is kind of like when, I don't know, if you're dating someone that is totally vapid and treats you like shit, but they're hot and they have double D's, or if you're going out with someone that's 40 years older than you, that's not really nice to you and is kind of ugly and decrepit, but they're rich, are you going to be with that person if that ugly, mean, decrepit person goes broke the next day? Are you going to be with that person who treats you like shit, who's really hot if they're no longer hot? Like, you have to understand, are they there for you? Or are they there for just the basic, superficial base level of what you have to offer? Granted, it's not healthy to be in a relationship for such superficial reasons to begin with, but at the very least, if you're in that type of superficial relationship, you need to understand the reality of the situation and understand that the person who's with you is only with you for one thing and one thing only. Maybe your looks, maybe your money. And my belief is that most of the people are not here because they feel some sense of loyalty to the pollution everywhere, a sense of loyalty to the crumbling infrastructure, a sense of loyalty to the general anxious, aggravated manner within which highly stressed out New York City residents conduct themselves with each other. They're not loyal to the high property taxes. They're not loyal to the fact that it's $1.2 million to get a house that's kind of a shithole. They're here for the money and the entertainment. And when you take that away, there's no real reason to be here anymore. Now, if you put it at the federal level, if you have some sort of tax at the federal level that is for people of a certain wealth amount, fine, that makes sense. A lot of people, they're not going to leave the United States because their taxes go up a bit. But leaving New York City for any one of the other 49 states in the country? Absolutely. Why not? There's many places in the country right now where there's probably more economic opportunity. There's probably more to actually do in addition to all of the other fringe benefits you get by not living in the cesspool that is New York City. But that's my opinion. What do you think? That's it for today. And as always, Blackberry hopes that you learn something. She's my berry. I know you're my berry. Who's my berry? Nuzzle? Nuzzle. Oh, don't show your ass to the camera. What are you doing, Barry? They got to go to the OnlyFans page for that. Blackberry. Blackberry. Oh, jeez. Way to ruin it, Blackberry.